Well, hello everybody and welcome back. This is going to be part 2 of my kitchen reno process where I'll show you my new special interest, which is decorative plates. We'll talk about my favorite brands, what I've kind of learned about decorative plates in the process, I guess things to look for in terms of quality when you're collecting plates, and a little bit of history. And I started this kitchen renovation. Obviously, part of it was looking at Pinterest and deciding how I was going to decorate this kitchen. The age of the house is like 1940s, if my memory serves me right. So I wanted to keep some sort of classic, kind of retro vintage charm because redoing the kitchen in a way that was going to be very modern or contemporary just wasn't going to fit well or vibe with the age of the house. So, with all of my Pinterest scrolling, I ended up coming across all of these cute antique vintage plate vignettes, and I immediately knew that that's what I wanted to do. Figuring out where to find vintage plates, they're all over the place. It's really just a matter of figuring out what style of art and aesthetic fits well with what you want your place to look like. Being an artist myself, I wanted to make sure that I had like specific colors and compositions of plates that were going to work well together as well. I didn't just want to pick anything. I am a creature that really enjoys tradition and heritage. So I wanted to make sure that with my research, I was going to find pieces that have a rich history. So I started with looking at Facebook Marketplace because I could do that from the comfort of my home while also cross-referencing information on the internet in terms of the heritage and the history of these pieces. And then I had a day where we weren't in a flurry of kitchen renovation activity where I could go to a couple vintage shops. So I went to some antique stores in the city. I've been to some of these shops before, so I was familiar with the types of pieces that they carry. I didn't find anything that first day that I went. It was more of just like a reconnaissance mission. Let's gather information. Let's see what's out there. These pieces in the video today are ones that I found at a very special little shop in the city that obviously you would never know existed unless you were into this like weird new niche collection hobby. It's called Missing Pieces, and it is an entire house that is a business where they sell old fine china. The different rooms of the house contain different makers of these types of porcelain and fine china. And what they're typically doing is shipping out pieces for people to complete their collections of vintage china. So if you're looking for a specific piece to complete your collection or you're looking to start a new collection, each room of the house is divided into the different makers. So you have like a Royal Dalton room. You have like a room dedicated to German transferware, German ceramics. There's even a hallway that is dedicated to, I think it was like Staffordshire makers who just make like luxury plates for like Vera Wang or Kate Spade or any of these like luxury designers that do occasional fine china drops, I guess. Being able to go through that business, that gigantic house filled with all that old china, was an incredible experience. They have their inventory online and as well all the intimate knowledge about the history of these pieces. So I feel very fortunate to have found such an interesting niche business in the city I live in. So without further ado, we're going to go through the kind of unboxing of these pieces. And as well, this is video 11 of my 90 days of YouTube challenge series. So if you're into art or weird special interests like this of mine, I'm just a tattoo artist who's taking a year to live delusionally. So if any of this interests you, check out my other videos and subscribe, do all the things. Okay? Thanks. Decorative plates have existed for centuries, not just for dining, but for collecting and display. Artists and makers from early China, Persia, and medieval Europe produced plates as art. Over time in the 18th and 19th century, Britain and Japan started using a technique called transfer printing, which is basically a process where design is transferred from an engraved copper plate to a piece of paper and then onto pottery, which made things a lot more affordable, accessible, and collectible. And with that, plate culture boomed in the 19th and 20th centuries, where people started framing plates for walls and shelves, and companies would release annual or limited edition plates tied to themes or anniversaries or holidays. So you really kind of got to know what patterns and makers and condition the plates are so you can really assess the value. This first plate is a Wedgewood, and it's a company that was founded back in 1759 by a guy named Josiah Wedgewood in Staffordshire, England. He actually pioneered transfer printing and later introduced a super popular style called jasperware. I tend to love Wedgewood. Whenever I see one of their plates, I'm always drawn to the images. Now, I am obsessed with this large platter. It is a Blue Willow, which is a famous chinoiserie scene first standardized in England around 1790. The design features a large willow tree, birds, lovers escaping on the boat, and this one's made by Booth in Staffordshire, which is one of the earliest producers of Blue Willow transferware. Plates marked Booth or with Booth backstamps are coveted amongst true collectors, and Blue Willow was produced by many houses over 200 years, so the maker's mark really matters with discerning its value. Now give me a break. I love this name, Royal Crown Derby. It's an English luxury china. And this stuff kind of dates back to 1750. It's got a long heritage, and it's known especially for its lavish bone china, hand-painted enamels, gilding, floral scroll work, often deeply three-dimensional, and it's British decorative art at its finest. I mean, look at this. It's an absolutely insane pattern, stunning. Now, obviously, when you take a deep dive into niche collectors' things like this, the next thing you learn is how to evaluate the quality and to check for common imperfections. So, the maker's marks not only are just interesting to see on the back, because you can also look up how a company's maker's mark has evolved and changed over hundreds of years. Also, if they're printed versus impressed versus hand painted, all these things help date and verify the origin, and you can sometimes find like guides or communities to help decode these marks. Also, in regards to food safety, please note that plates made before approximately 1970 were not regulated for lead in glazes. Generally, you don't want to put these in a dishwasher, so mostly just display these. With your glaze on the plate, there's something called crazing, and it is a fine network of cracks, often just from age, but it can definitely hurt the food quality and distort the image. Hairline cracks visible under the light are risky if the plate is loaded with weight, and obviously chips and pitting is going to reduce your value and appearance. I don't mind a little bit of like hand painted brush strokes that might not be perfect. Um, because again, that's just like a sign of like a real human making something. With your weight and translucence, porcelain should let the light through lightly when held near a source, and stoneware and earthenware won't. If you have a plate with gilding, the gold edges or decoration often wear off, which affects the aesthetic and collector's value. I'm hanging up my plates with plate hangers. I got these at Michael's. You can also find them at Home Depot and I believe even Canadian Tire. So it's still very easy for you to be able to display decorative plates if that's something that you have lying around the house or if it's something that you're interested in getting into. And the hangers are fairly inexpensive to get your hands on. I think I spent between $3 to $10 on these brand new. I've also seen them on Facebook Marketplace and various, I guess, sites that you can buy them secondhand off people. I am so elated with all the art that this brings into the kitchen and how it feels like vintage and homey. I know that I'll be collecting more of these as time goes on, but this is a perfect little start to a very nice collection. And it's something that I think too is fairly inexpensive I can that can kind of grow with you, right, as you evolve. And it's like a little souvenir thing that you can pick up as you're traveling your way through life, whether you find it at a garage sale or a vintage shop or just online, secondhand through somebody. I'm very excited to see where else this goes. And if you're curious about my YouTube journey and my 90 days of YouTube challenge, I'd love your support. Hit that subscribe button. Let me know which one of these plates was your favorite, and we'll see you next time for, I think it's week 12. So that's all for now. Bye.